concussions and the recovery of students who may be in your class and how you can best help them. Let's take a little quiz just to see what you already know about concussions in the recovery period. Number 1, how long does the average concussion take to heal? 5 to 7 days, 2 to 4 weeks, or 3 to 4 months? The correct answer is B, 2 to 4 weeks. And I use that word average loosely because, as one sports medicine doctor told me, you've seen one concussion, you've seen one concussion. Meaning there is no predictability about one concussion based on what they've seen in someone else. You tear your meniscus, there is a very predictable recovery period, but not so with concussions. Everyone is unique. Number 2, true or false? Moodiness is a common symptom of a concussion. This is true, and some of the emotional symptoms and side effects of concussions are often overlooked, and students can be very unacquainted with those. Number 3, true or false? All concussion symptoms appear within the first 24 hours following a concussion. That is false. Some of them can take weeks or months to show up. So you'll have students returning saying they're fine who have yet to have all of their symptoms show up. Number 4, true or false? You can get a concussion without hitting your head. That is actually true. While we think of it as a blow to the head, it can also be a blow to the body, which causes the head to move back and forth rapidly. Number 4, true or false? Mentally stimulating activities can help the recovery process after a concussion. False. They will actually slow down the healing process. So even though you have a student who may be worried about how they're getting behind, the worst thing they can do is plunge back into it. They get more bang for their buck in terms of their recovery if they will rest longer at the beginning. And if they miss that window of opportunity, doing it 3 weeks in is less likely to be effective as a few hours, a couple days in to the concussion recovery period. Number 6, true or false? People who have had one concussion have increased likelihood of another. That is true. Number 7, which of the following is not a risk factor for concussion? Gender, age, or blood type? Correct answer is C, blood type. Gender is a risk factor. In fact, women are 50% more likely than their male counterparts to sustain a sports-related concussion. That has been hypothesized because of weaker neck muscles, but there are also issues related to hormone levels and the menstrual cycle. So if a concussion happens within the first 2 weeks following a menstrual cycle versus the last 2 weeks before one, that can significantly affect the recovery period based on progesterone levels. Number 8, which of the following put an individual at higher risk for concussions? History of migraines, or a learning disability, or motion sickness? The correct answer is D, all the above. History of migraines and motion sickness and the history of a learning disability, any one of those things can put an individual at higher risk for concussions. The first few days, cognitive and physical rest are essential. This isn't like the flu where a student can stay in bed and take a nap and then wake up and do some work and go back to sleep. Mental effort will worsen symptoms and effects of them. Many concussed students exhibit similar symptoms to students with ADHD. Now, I'm not suggesting that they acquire ADHD. I'm saying the behaviors may look similar. So if you're familiar with ADHD, you may see some of those symptoms in your concussed students. Students should not have any screen time or any reading. And so as eager as you, the professor, may be to get them caught up, the best thing you can do is to encourage them to take that time to heal. Because if they take it at the beginning, like I said, they're going to get more bang for their buck in the healing process than trying to do it weeks or months in. Taking ibuprofen, which is a blood thinner, is bad. Students should take Tylenol. I always encourage them to wait outside of chapel for weeks and months afterwards until the music and Bethical news and things like that are over with, just because light and sound sensitivity are such a factor. Zooming a class is often the worst thing they can do. It's kind of a catch-22. Do you walk across campus where the impact of your feet on the sidewalk are jiggling your brain in your head? Or do you go to class, or do you stay home and Zoom it and have screen time, which is really bad for the recovery? So some of the physical symptoms you may see, we're all familiar with some of these top ones. Light and sound sensitivity are big ones. Balance problems may be significant, or clumsiness, which isn't a factor until the student with a concussion in their right temporal region runs into a door jamb because of their clumsiness. They may experience changes in sleep patterns, such as insomnia, and not just because they're sleeping at irregular time periods during their recovery. Now, this is a symptom that we're familiar with in the current state of things, aren't we? Changes in taste or sense of smell. Let's talk about the emotional symptoms that a student may experience. Moodiness, irritability. They may be uncharacteristically emotional. And so you may have a girl who's normally very sweet, who's snapping at her roommates and her boyfriend and doesn't understand why she's being like that. There may be personality changes. A student may experience atypical anxiety or depression. So if they didn't have those things before, maybe they do now. Or if they had them before, maybe those are exacerbated now. Cognitive symptoms. Memory loss. This is the big one where it concerns you. Expect them to forget what you tell them. When I'm meeting with a concussed student, what I try to do is I take notes and then I send them an email recap and I tell them I'm going to do that. And sometimes I'll even say, I know you should not be looking at the computer or a screen. Do you have a roommate or friend you would like me to copy that to and ask them to print it off for you? I also write things, if there's a particular task that is urgent for them to do, I will write that on a brightly colored sticky note so they have a visual cue. But expect them to forget any verbal instructions you give them. Even if they are 2 weeks out and they're coming to your office hours to develop a plan to get caught up, put that in writing for them. And don't write in cursive because a lot of students nowadays can't read cursive. They weren't taught that. You may see problems with concentration, word retrieval. So this is going to impact their ability to participate in class. If they are struggling to retrieve the word that they're thinking of, they're going to be reluctant to participate orally. Difficulty with auditory comprehension and reading comprehension. That's going to affect their ability to take notes. Difficulty making simple decisions. Maybe the act of going to the DC and choosing lunch is all they can handle cognitively that day. The other thing I want to show you is related to visual issues, vision issues, and eye congruence. So this is actually a video I'm going to show you that's actually my daughter Kimberly. She had a concussion with a loss of consciousness following a motorcycle accident in Africa. And then the summer after that, she experienced 3 concussions in 3 months, followed by 3 more concussions within the next 6 months. And so we didn't even realize she was struggling with vision congruence until we got her to the eye doctor and they did this. So what you'll see, what you won't hear is that she's reading this orally and very fluidly. So we wouldn't have thought she was having any problems with her reading, with her vision. But you'll watch her tracking. There's a black dot that's going to show up and go across the screen, and it'll show how her eyes are tracking. And you'll see that while they're going left to right, which some people's will jump all over the place, hers are backtracking a lot, and even though she's orally reading fluidly, she is not visually reading fluidly. So if I can get this to play. There we go. So you can see the black dot and how it goes left to right, but it's very choppy. And you can see sometimes it backtracks or it jumps from the beginning of the line to the middle of the line and then backtracks. See how that goes? And she was stunned when she saw this video of what her eyes were doing. And so this is true for a lot of students, that they're having visual congruence issues and don't even know it. And so this is going to affect their ability to read well. And so some of the things that you may observe in class are students aren't processing as quickly or effectively before, so they're hesitant to participate. They may have difficulty organizing their thoughts in a logical way. They may be light sensitive, resulting in headaches. Again, encourage them to wear sunglasses or a baseball cap in class. They are often reluctant to do this, even though they're light sensitive much of the time. If you notice a student looking down at their desk a lot, that is, unbeknownst to them, subconsciously an effort to get their eyes to stay focused on you and to forestall any pressure that they're feeling in their head. That's how the body compensates. So let's talk about exams and what you might see. They're going to have difficulty reading exams, both decoding and comprehending. They're going to have difficulty thinking analytically. So those exams for which there's a lot of application questions, like psychology and nursing, and where there's case studies, that is going to be very difficult for them. They're going to have difficulty with the logical flow of thought for writing essays. So whether on an exam, an essay question, or you're just going to notice their writing seems subpar potentially to what it did before. So a good writer may look like they're not putting in much effort, and a poorer writer may just look like they're not trying at all. Difficulty with information retrieval. So even the multiple choice tests that are more vocabulary oriented and memorization oriented, like anatomy and some other biologies, they're going to have difficulty retrieving those previously memorized facts. Other effects you're going to see in the classroom: difficulty working on the computer more than 15 minutes at a time will really impact those math and chemistry classes and foreign language classes where there's online homework that they have to do. Students are going to have a great deal of difficulty determining significant information from less significant information. So their ability to take notes over the textbook or from lecture is going to be greatly impacted. In math, students may not be able to follow new processes or retrieve previously learned processes. Again, writing assignments are going to be very difficult because of that organizing a logical flow of thoughts, and it can be increased headache symptoms. Note-taking is very problematic because it involves multitasking. So one of the kindest things you as a professor can do when you have a student with a concussion returning to class is say, "Hey, I know about your concussion. I just want you to know I've asked Johnny over here. He's a great note taker. He's going to take notes for you for the next couple weeks. And so you only have to worry about listening. And it's okay if you want to close your eyes. I'm not going to think that you're falling asleep. But even if you do, that's okay, because your brain is healing. And I want you to only have to worry about listening for now. So you just close your eyes. He's going to take notes for you." That is something very helpful. Also, refer them to me. I may or may not know about them. There's many students with concussions that I never hear about that I could have helped, and I don't hear about them until later. I can get them audiobooks, extended time on tests, and different things while they're healing. Please allow them to wear sunglasses or baseball caps in class to minimize that light sensitivity. Another thing that you can do is print their exam on colored paper, not neon, but like pastel or buff colored paper. And what that does is that reduces the glare from the black ink on the white paper. And so it's less likely that they're going to get a severe headache while they're taking your test. However, one of the things you can do is allow them to take the test in increments. So whether they're taking it in class or whether they're taking a makeup test in your office or with your department secretary, give it to them one page at a time. This is a trick I learned from Lori Stutzman. If they take the first page and by the end of it they've got a roaring headache, then they can go take a break and rest for a little while and come back, and they haven't seen the rest of the test, so the integrity of it isn't compromised. Again, I can't emphasize enough, give written instructions. If you're having a class period where you're talking about an upcoming big project or assignment and you're outlining the requirements for that, please make sure that you either give them a handout detailing that or put it on the PowerPoint and tell them all, everybody, not just the concussed student, tell them all to get out their phones and take a picture of the screen. And that way that person with a concussion has that cue. Share your knowledge. At this point, you probably know a lot more about concussions and recovery than the student you're dealing with. So you may be the one to tell them, "Hey, don't eat chocolate these first few days after your concussion." And then in closing, some of the recent findings in the last 2 years are showing us that students who look like they're bouncing back, who aren't presenting with the more severe and overt symptoms, can actually have long-term damage interfering with their academics. So these are the students who think they're fine, they think they've recovered 100%, and then down the road we're starting to see that, their processing speed is not what it was. They're not the first one done with the test anymore, they're the last one done with the test. Vision congruence issues, which is something that is very hard for them to be aware of. And then I love this meme because it kind of sums up what is maybe going on in their heads. This is not the expression you're going to see on the concussed student's face. They're probably going to be smiling and nodding at you and acting like they understand what you're saying. But don't assume that they are understanding you. They respect you. They respect your intellect. The last thing they want to do is look stupid in front of you and asking you to repeat yourself or explain that in a different way or say that they're having trouble concentrating on what you're saying. That is not something they want to admit. So again, anything that you can put in writing to give them a visual cue of what they need to do, and keep your instructions simple and just always assume that they're going to forget what you said. That's the way I operate. And I would love to hear what some of your tips and techniques are, because I'm sure through the years you've come up with some creative things that you would be willing to share about solutions that you've implemented with your students with concussions. And if you would like a little light bedtime reading, I would invite you to consult the Journal of Head Trauma Rehabilitation and some of these other sources that I used today. Thank you.